Mercury. Mercury presents a binary lethal environment. The sunlit surface reaches 430 degrees Celsius. The night side plunges to negative 180 degrees Celsius. No atmosphere exists to mediate either extreme. The primary kill mechanism is vacuum exposure. Without atmospheric pressure, dissolved gases in the bloodstream nucleate immediately. Fluids begin transitioning toward vapor. Incapacitation arrives within 15 seconds. Biological death follows within 90 seconds. The sequence begins with saliva boiling on the tongue. The lungs attempt to exhale into vacuum and collapse inward. Blood oxygen deprivation triggers loss of consciousness. Circulatory arrest follows. Unfiltered solar radiation accelerates cellular degradation simultaneously, but it is secondary. The body is already non-functional before radiation damage accumulates to lethal concentrations. Among solid surface planets, and Mercury delivers death by vacuum, the same mechanism as open space, with the added variable of extreme thermal cycling available only to a body that has already ceased to function. Mercury does not kill you with its temperature. It kills you with its nothing. Venus. Venus sustains a surface atmospheric pressure of 92 bar. That is the equivalent of 900 meters depth in Earth's ocean. Mean surface temperature holds at 465 degrees Celsius. These are maintained by a runaway greenhouse effect with no diurnal relief. Cloud layers between 45 and 70 kilometers altitude consist of sulfuric acid at concentrations between 75 and 96%. The primary kill mechanism depends on entry altitude. At cloud level, sulfuric acid contacts expose tissue and hydrolyzes proteins and lipids on contact. At the surface, thermal energy denatures all biological molecules within milliseconds. Measurable tissue destruction begins in under 1 second at the surface. Functional biological death arrives within 2 seconds. The physiological sequence involves simultaneous compressive force collapsing all air spaces in the lungs, stomach and sinuses, while thermal energy denatures skin, ocular tissue and mucosal surfaces. No single organ fails first. All systems fail in parallel. Venus is the only planetary body in the solar system where death operates through simultaneous crushing. Cooking and chemical dissolution. 3 independent lethal mechanisms arrive with no measurable interval between them. Venus does not give the body time to register a cause of death. Mars. Mars maintains an atmospheric pressure of approximately 0.006 bar. That is roughly 0.6% of Earth's surface pressure. The atmosphere is 95% carbon dioxide. Surface temperatures range from negative 125 degrees Celsius at the poles to positive 20 degrees Celsius at equatorial midday. The primary kill mechanism is decompression. At 0.006 bar, the Armstrong limit is exceeded. Liquid water in body tissues and blood begins transitioning toward vaporization. Loss of consciousness arrives within 15 seconds as hypoxia and decompression act simultaneously. Biological death follows within 60 to 90 seconds. The sequence begins with hypoxic blackout as the lungs find no extractable oxygen in near vacuum. Ebulism follows. Water vapor bubbles nucleate in soft tissue. Skin swells visibly as internal hemorrhaging begins. Carbon dioxide toxicity is concurrent but secondary. Consciousness is lost before carbon dioxide reaches lethal blood concentrations. Mars is the most deceptive planetary environment in the solar system. Its visible pressure and hospitable midday temperatures create a physiological illusion of borderline survivability. Mars looks like it might almost work, and that distinction means nothing to the biology. Jupiter. Jupiter has no defined solid surface. Descent into its atmosphere means progressive pressure increase through banded layers of hydrogen and helium. Cloud tops composed of ammonia crystals sit at negative 145 degrees Celsius. Below those, ammonium hydrosulfide clouds follow. Deeper still, water ice and liquid water clouds give way to pressures and temperatures escalating toward a liquid metallic hydrogen interior. The primary kill mechanism in the upper atmosphere is ammonia toxicity, combined with pressure increase and extreme cold. Ammonia concentration at cloud top entry is immediately lethal to respiratory tissue. A few breaths chemically burn the alveolar lining of the lungs and prevent oxygen exchange entirely. Respiratory incapacitation arrives within 30 seconds. Death from chemical asphyxia and hypoxia follows within 3 to 5 minutes. The physiological sequence involves alveolar destruction closing off gas exchange, followed by cyanosis, cardiac arrhythmia from hypoxia, and loss of consciousness before descent carries the body into pressure zones exceeding the structural tolerance of human tissue. Jupiter's radiation belts would deliver lethal radiation doses measured in hours to days. No unprotected human reaches that timeline. Jupiter eliminates the question of landing before it can be asked. Jupiter does not have a place to die. It has a process, and the process ends you before you reach bottom. Saturn. Saturn's atmosphere shares structural identity with Jupiter. Hydrogen and helium dominant, banded cloud layers, no solid surface beneath. Saturn is distinguished by a surface gravity at cloud tops of 0.92 times Earth's, nearly equivalent, and by detectable methane concentrations in its atmospheric composition. The primary kill mechanism is identical to Jupiter's upper atmosphere. Ammonia toxicity at cloud top entry, with pressures escalating rapidly below. Respiratory incapacitation arrives within 30 seconds. Biological death follows within 4 minutes. The physiological sequence mirrors Jupiter exactly. Alveolar chemical burn from ammonia, hypoxic cascade, cardiac arrest from oxygen deprivation. Saturn's near-Earth gravity means a human body descends faster relative to Jupiter, reaching higher pressure zones in reduced time. Methane content adds a secondary asphyxiant. It is irrelevant only because ammonia kills faster. The rings of Saturn create no shelter. Its lower mass creates no survivable atmospheric layer. The visual complexity of Saturn's structure conceals a biological indifference identical to every other gas giant. Saturn is beautiful in a way that has nothing to do with whether you can survive it. Uranus. Uranus is an ice giant. Its interior consists of a water, methane, and ammonia ice mantle, beneath a hydrogen and helium outer atmosphere. Cloud top temperature sits at negative 224 degrees Celsius. That makes Uranus the coldest planetary atmosphere in the solar system, despite being the 7th planet from the Sun rather than the 8th. The primary kill mechanism is thermal energy loss, at a rate that overwhelms all biological heat conservation capacity, simultaneous with methane and hydrogen atmospheric toxicity precluding respiration. Functional hypothermia arrives within 30 seconds. Core temperature drops to levels triggering cardiac arrhythmia rapidly. Death follows within 90 seconds to 2 minutes. The physiological sequence begins with peripheral vasoconstriction, failing immediately at these temperatures. Heat loss from the core outpaces metabolic heat production within seconds. Core temperature drops below 28 degrees Celsius. Ventricular fibrillation develops. Circulatory arrest follows. The atmosphere contains no oxygen and carries methane at concentrations toxic to neural tissue. Uranus also holds the most extreme axial tilt in the solar system at 98 degrees, meaning its poles face the sun for decades at a time. Those seasonal light cycles are irrelevant to a body that cannot survive long enough to experience them. Uranus is so cold that the body's heat budget becomes the only variable that matters, and that budget is gone in seconds. Neptune. Neptune holds the highest recorded wind speeds of any body in the solar system. Upper atmospheric winds reach 2,100 km per hour. Temperature at those altitudes sits at negative 214 degrees Celsius. The atmosphere is hydrogen and helium with methane tinting its visible colour, sitting above a deep interior of water and ice. The primary kill mechanism is aerodynamic dismemberment. Wind speeds at 2,100 km per hour apply shear forces to the human body that exceed the tensile strength of connective tissue, ligaments, and skin. Differential pressure across the body's surface area at those wind speeds generates forces sufficient to physically separate tissue planes. This is not a figure of speech. Structural integrity of the body fails within 1 to 3 seconds of exposure to full wind velocity. The physiological sequence is not a biological cascade. It is mechanical deconstruction. Thermoregulatory failure and atmospheric toxicity are real. They are secondary. Neptune's wind speed reaches lethal mechanical force before cold or chemistry can accumulate damage. Neptune holds a category of planetary lethality unique in the solar system. Kinetic death, where momentum transfer rather than chemistry or temperature is the primary kill mechanism. Neptune does not poison or freeze you first, it takes you apart. Pluto. Pluto's a dwarf planet. Its surface temperature holds at negative 230 degrees Celsius, approaching absolute zero. Its atmosphere is a tenuous nitrogen layer that periodically collapses entirely to the surface as ice when Pluto reaches aphelion, and solar heating drops below the threshold required to maintain gas phase. The primary kill mechanism is thermal energy loss at a rate and magnitude exceeding any other solid surface body in the solar system within human reach. Skin contact with the nitrogen ice surface freezes tissue at the contact point within milliseconds. Core temperature drops to physiologically incompatible levels within 20 to 30 seconds. Cardiac arrest follows within 60 seconds. The physiological sequence begins with contact frostbite progressing to full-thickness tissue destruction at all contact points within seconds. Peripheral circulation shuts down entirely. Core temperature falls below the threshold for cardiac electrical stability. Ventricular fibrillation develops. Circulatory arrest follows. The atmosphere, when present, provides no oxygen and is too thin to buffer thermal loss or provide convective warming. Thus, Pluto represents the terminus of the solar system's lethality spectrum. A solid surface you can reach but cannot stand on without immediate biological cessation. Pluto is the most honest planet. It does not transform you or crush you or dissolve you. It simply takes all your heat and does not give any back.